So today I'm talking with Mike Doyle, and this is going to be a video on my channel that is not like the rest. And so we're just going to talk about music. And if you have known me, been following me for years, you know that I was a musician before I switched to photography, and I was in a bunch of bands, and I went to a bunch of shows locally in New Jersey. And Mike actually started, he was in a bunch of bands. And then he also recently started a podcast talking about the New Jersey music scene in the 90s. And it's a very nostalgic show. It's very well done. He's talking to a bunch of people that you would, if you were in the New Jersey music scene, a bunch of people you would want to hear from. So he's getting the perfect guests, and it's just a really good thing. And I am down here in North Carolina visiting my parents. And Mike moved from New Jersey to North Carolina, and he's semi-local to where my parents are. So he took the drive out here, and we're just going to chat about some things going on that past of what's with Mike and the podcast and some of the workings behind it and things like that. So thanks for coming to hang out.
Yeah, thanks, man. I was excited for today.
Yeah. So
I like my Fridays to, not be work related, where I can go get interviewed for something.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I was in a bunch of bands, and I just want to quickly share some of the bands that I was in, and then we're going to get into where Mike started and where he is now and things like that. So some of the bands that I started in were a really horrible pop punk band called 20 Minutes to Nowhere. And then after 20 Minutes to Nowhere, I started a screamo band with a bunch of friends, actually the same group of guys, for the most part, from 20 Minutes to Nowhere. And that band was called Sever the Stars. And Sever the Stars had one show, and that one show was with Penfold, the assistant, and I forgot who else played that show.
It was like, you guys did so well, you're like, we can't do any better than this. We need to stop now.
So our one recording that we did was actually from the M&M Hall at this one show, and it was actually so good that even one song had a song name called Untitled Title. Or unnamed title or something.
You were quite the meta. You were ahead of your time.
And then I took a little bit of a hiatus from music and came back to join a band that my friend Neil started after he left Stick Figure Suicide and Pensy Prep.
Yep.
He started the band Fairmont. Joke's on you, went through and through. And I joined as under keyboard, playing like the synthesizer, which Planet Antonio actually gave me an old synthesizer to use. And I was doing that for years, and then eventually, through a bunch of band member changes, I switched and was playing rhythm guitar.
Wait, was this in Dharma Boys, Antonio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have, through the podcast, I'm going to talk to the camera, I'm talking to people. I'm so used to interviewing people, I'm stopping myself from asking you questions right now. Because I'm so into that. I'm so into it. I'm biting my tongue what was that about? Sorry.
Yeah. So after Fairmont, we did some touring together, did a bunch of albums. Fairmont's put out a ton of albums. And then time came where I had to focus on my photography, and I left playing music in bands. But this is not about me. This is about Mike. I just want to share the history.
Even though I want to ask him all these questions about himself right now. I'm like, this is so fascinating.
Yeah. So today's the first time I'm formally meeting Mike, although we've been in the same building together, the same room together many of a times.
20 years ago.
And we've got a lot of the same friends and acquaintances and whatnot. So it's more like we've known each other really than anything. But
we probably like passed by each other or just being
yeah.
Okay.
And I've been to a bunch of shows where he was been playing and I'd be like, you know, rocking out.
This is the best song ever, especially his songs, not the other guy's songs, but his songs.
So, let's talk about your time in the music scene. So, you've been in a bunch of bands over the years. Some way back, some back, and some more recently, right?
Kind of, yeah.
So let's talk about that. What are the bands that you were in?
Let's see. When I was in, so this kind of goes back to high school. When I was 14, I met my buddy Chris Barker. And Chris, people might know now from Day at the Fair. But when we started, he played guitar and I was in plays, or I liked plays, and I was, wanted to sing. So we kind of came together and he was writing music. And I had never seen someone write their own lyrics. So we got together and I picked up bass and we would play. And we didn't have, we had one band we were in, and it was, 3 of the people, and we had like one practice, and we didn't have a name, and it sucked. We were doing covers of, crap bands. And then we got together and said, let's form a band. I think our first name was Tyranian Purple. And it was based on the Pope's robe color, I think. And then that progressed, and the two of us would sit and play, and we had a camera set up, and we'd play face-to-face covers, Pennywise. I don't think we did No Effects. And there's actually a video of us for 30 minutes playing at the end. We were just like super goofy. So the two of us would play that. And then we got our buddy Jeff DiMaselli and then Andy Spratt in the band we called the Congress of Cow. We got that name when we were in Rockaway Mall, and we were in a bookstore. We were looking at a positions book, and Congress of the Cow was the name of a position. And so we said, it's Congress of Cow. So we did Congress of Cow, which then when Jeff and Andy left the band, we kicked Andy out. But when I kicked Andy out. And then when Jeff left the band, we got Sean Smith and Alan Rappaport, created Lanemeyer, because Alan thought of the name because of Better Off Dead. So we did Lanemeyer, and that was the bigger band that I'd ever been in. It's one of those where we played shows, people started liking, we did CDs, and people would sing the words back.
I would even say Lanemeyer is one of the bands that helped shape the whole New Jersey pop punk scene, really. Right. I mean, a lot of the bands that followed really started branching off the sound that you guys were producing. I mean, obviously
that's awesome. I mean, I think when we came in, we were pulling from the bands that we liked,
right.
But we didn't like those bands from inside of the scene. We were liking those bands because we got their CDs, No Effects, Pennywise, Face to Face. Then we started this, and we entered into the Legion Halls and the hall, Eminem Hall and Garfield and Elks Lodges and things. And then we kind of created this thing with like Humble Beginnings and Boxcar, and we look up to bands like Bigwig and things like that, and we'd still look at these big bands, and then then the little bands, they would be bigger bands, like Random Task and Outline,
right.
Who then ended up turning into what's Ben's Armor for Sleep, and then Steel Train, and then Jack went on to do Fun.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. I did hear one time we did a reunion show in 2004. And the guys from Early November were there, and I didn't know who they were. And I think Ace had said, that we were an influence on them. And I remember talking to, what was his name? Oh my God, the singer in The Starting Line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember his? Oh my God, I cannot remember his name. We right at the end of Lanemeyer, I connected with him somehow just through instant messenger. We were just like, just like, hey man, hey, your band's really cool. And I think he said, yeah, dude, like you guys were an influence on us. So I think that was kind of cool hearing that from some people. So I guess we had definitely some influence on people.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely obvious in the scene at the time that sound was branching off. I mean, just in the same way that you got your sound from,
I mean, that's how it works. Everyone has an influence, but then they just completely rip it off and they just become a rip-off band, or you eventually mold it into your sound. Like, because you do with what feels right.
Yeah.
It's like photography. You look at someone else's style and you start to mimic it, but then there's a part of you that you're kind of like, it just doesn't feel like me yet. And then you do something and it becomes you, and then you're like, okay, now I have my thing. Like you have like internal thing.
And talking about the podcast, you just talked to Brian Carley.
Yeah.
Going from Metallica to Penfold's music, it's a perfect example of, you can still slightly tell the Metallica influence just from like the guitar riffs that they're doing and stuff, but
it's a moodiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you just listen to Penfold, you don't hear Metallica.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's actually a Lanemeyer song. It's called Take Two, and it's one of the ones that I did, and it's got this like, dun, 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 dun. It's just got this slow beat, and I ripped that idea off from a Hum song. There's a song called, I forget the name of it, but it's got this beat. It's like dun, 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 and I love that, just that slow, but it kicked in from nowhere. It was just clean guitars, and it was like just the guitars came in. I'm like, I want to do that, and then I turned it into this really poppy song, but it has that beat that's reminiscent of that. I was like, I have to make this my own. I'm like, it doesn't really sound like that, but in my head, I know the part that it actually takes it from. So if you really listen to that song, you can kind of hear it, but you have to be like, I don't really get it. I get it.
Yeah, but that's...
Tell me if I'm talking too much, too. I feel like...
Yeah, so I mean, part of being a songwriter is taking what inspires you and what influences you and making it your own. So if,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And then just what your feeling is. Are you mad? Are you, what are you talking about? And you really have a connection with what you're talking about. I think if you have a real topic of what the song is about, it just adds this more essence to it.
Yeah.
If you're talking about nothing, you're kind of like, it's kind of dry. It's a little empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after Lanemeyer, you were in another one.
So Lanemeyer broke up. I moved to California, and that's where I decided I wanted to go to graphic design school. And while I was out there, I got the itch to play again. It was funny. There was a band called Spaz Boy, who was a big punk rock scene, a pop punk band that was big out in San Diego, right around the time that we were playing. So there's all these scenes that were happening all around the country, and which is kind of funny because, This Was the Scene podcast is just focused on New Jersey. I'm sure anyone could take that idea and do that in any pocket, and people would be like, oh, man. And so Spaz Boy was a band in San Diego. It was this guy, Jay, who was the singer, and I never heard of them until I moved out there, and they used to play shows. So I ended up playing bass for them for a minute, and that was fun, and it kind of was like, oh, okay, cool, because I brought my bass and they moved to California, and I was like, oh, man, I want to play again. So I would fill in sometimes for that, and then I was like, I want to start playing music again. So I started writing songs, and I thought of the name Arcade Academy because I thought of arcade went back to the 80s of when I was younger, so it was nostalgic. Mm-hmm. I always had this nostalgia thing. And Academy was right around that time. It was 2003, 2004, when all these new bands were coming out, when I disliked how the scene was going, even though I gravitated, I like a lot of those bands now.
Right.
And I thought Academy would have been teaching these guys about what it was, showing them the way of, this is what the punk rocks, my style of punk rock was. And so Arcade Academy came about, and we played out there. And when I moved to Jersey, I took the name here, and then I got other people to do the band. Around, did you get to play a song and play it loud? Or did you get to wear a smile and wear a frown? Did you really think we weren't around? And then that lasted for 4 or 5 years. But it was just more of a, hey, let's just go play shows. It wasn't, hey, let's make this into something.
Right.
I think we played a couple shows out of state, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want the tour bug anymore.
So you mentioned the animation. So let's talk about Drive 80.
Okay.
so I know what it is because the company I work for full time has had animations done.
Yeah.
Right. And so share with everybody else who has no idea what an animation company might do. Like what do you do that you offer to businesses?
So the elevator pitch is, I explain what your company does in less than 60 seconds. And that gets people's attention. If you say you're an animation company, they're like, oh, like Disney, Pixar. So they don't get the real idea. If you say you're a photographer, people are like, yeah, you're a photographer. But you said, if you're like, I'll visualize, or I help the frustration that no one understands. You can say like, I help businesses who are frustrated that they have really crappy headshots. So you have like some way to get people to go, and that's a really awful way for me to explain it in an elevator shot, but you have to go into kind of a pain point. So describing what a company does in less than 60 seconds gets their attention, because the director of marketing, they'll understand that, CEO will understand that.
Yeah.
So what animation does is, again, it helps businesses who are frustrated that people don't get what their company does, and you simplify it with like storytelling animation in less than 60 seconds. And you have an elevator pitch that is, we help businesses who are frustrated about this, angry about this, bummed out about this, annoyed by this, and you use those terms and you show the pain points. So if you start off and make a video where you do something like this, where it's video production. Now, video production is great, and I think if you do interviews, it works great. If you do testimonial videos, it's great. If you have a really good videographer, they can go to a company and they can tell a story. But nowadays you have very little time to do that. Right. So the animation is cool, and if you get the shot, it can get outdated. Like the clothes we're wearing now could potentially in a year or two look old,
right?
Or something in the shot, like maybe the whole time, they didn't like the fact that this was at 9:10, or they didn't like the fact that it was here. You can't really go back and edit that out. So the control aspect of it with animation is you're controlling the environment the entire time, and it's not really outdated. I have companies who are utilizing their videos from 2013 still as their main piece that explains what they do.
Right.
So hopefully, I don't know if that's really answering questions. So
no.
Yeah, and animation is basically, you come up with a script about, introduce the pain points of someone, your target market of why they're frustrated, why they buy from you. Say your solution. Don't technically show somebody how to do it. Don't give them the secret sauce. If I bring my car in to an auto mechanic, I don't want them telling me about the engine, the pieces. I just want the thing to run again.
Right.
Hey man, I got to get somewhere. I've got, I'm leaving this week, going on vacation. I need this back to me in 2 days. The engine's making a weird noise. And they're like, okay, cool. So what's wrong? I'm like, I'm worried I'm not going to get to my destination. They're like, okay, we'll fix that. I'm like, I don't care how you fix it, as long as it doesn't cost like $2,000.
So you have a whole team of people that work for you?
Depends. Me personally, when I was in California, I moved back to Jersey for graphic design. So I learned graphic design, videography, photography, animation was part of it, and web design and all that stuff. And so I learned how to do all of the things. I never liked working, when I was working for companies, I never liked working underneath someone who didn't actually know how to open a computer and do something themselves. It annoyed me to no end.
Yeah.
And so there's projects where I design them. The scripts, I'm not a big copywriter. So I'll have a client give us a script, or I'll freelance out to a copywriter, get a script, and then either, like right now I'm doing a project, I have a freelancer who's been my top freelancer guy for the last 7 years. And I give him the project. I say, hey man, come with the initial design, I'll show it to the client, which I'm actually going to do today, and then do the full storyboard. So he'll take on projects like that, or I'll get he's basically the main guy. And then I used to have an animator that he would take on the projects. So it depends on the budget. If the budget's smaller, I'll take on those pieces because then I get to keep the money. And if it's a larger budget, then I can outsource and then have a margin on top of it.
Right.
Which is the smartest way to do this. So anyone, I don't know what the audience is who watches this. I'm sure they want photography lessons and things.
Yeah. But there's other business owners and stuff. But
once people let go and realize that they aren't the best at what they do, and it's better to have other people who are better than them to do things. Right now, this whole week I was doing other things and my freelancer was designing. So as that's happening, I'm doing all these other things.
Right.
So it's like you're getting more done outside of the hours that you have.
Exactly. So the the podcast that I host for work is called the Wordpress Photography Podcast.
Yeah.
And it's literally about just photography websites, not specifically to WordPress. But the guest that I just recorded an episode with, she owns a company that she does. She's basically a VA for a virtual assistant for photographers. So she does editing for photographers. She just recently added blogging and newsletter content creation for photographers.
Genius.
And the whole episode is basically about what she's now offering, but also talking about when to know when it's time to let things go and outsource it. Yeah. So.
And it's also smart too. That's another thing that people don't realize is that when you niche down, you have a very specific target market, you'll get more business. When you say to someone, I'm a virtual assistant for photographers, or you say, I'm a virtual assistant, anyone could say, oh, okay, well, you can help me out with something. But if you say, no, I specifically work for photographers, then a photographer goes, oh, really? I need someone to do this stuff. And then your friends, you go, well, I don't do photography, but my buddy's a photographer, and he's told me about the frustrations that they have. They don't have the time to do this. It just goes back even to the podcast, It's the late 90s punk rock scene in New Jersey. It's so specific that someone in Michigan who's 20 now, they're not going to care about it, and that's perfect. But it's so specific to an audience that it like pulls in the right people.
But I think at the same time they'd be
interested to
the bands that the bands from New Jersey that made their way to Michigan.
They can look back and go like, where was where was that? And there is a tie to that, but specifically, I think it's always good for anyone to have. And I've yet to do this with my company, which I just haven't gotten I haven't taken the step to just say, oh, I just do accounting animations, or I just do them for Shop, because ShopRite's one of my clients. I just do them for supermarkets, because there's a scary thing of just saying, well, no to everyone else.
Right. Yeah. That it's tough. It's tough.
But it works. I've heard the most successful people that it works.
Yeah. So, what is your absolute favorite memory during your time with Lanemeyer? The one that really stands out that like
we broke up.
There had to be good times.
It was always the shows. It was the shows that we played. Well, the good thing is that, so me and Chris, we were best friend. Like, he's my best friend, and to this day, even though we'll go months without talking, but every time we talk again, it's like we haven't skipped a beat.
Right.
And it's cool. There's a bunch of us from high school. Like, we're all still close from back then. But when we were in the band, the problem was that we had different focuses on whatever. Like, I wanted to take it all the way, and he wanted to go, but I think he had just a different vision. So it kind of split us apart as friends, and that part I did not like. And then once the band was over, we could be friends. It was like that, and we became friends again, because we didn't have an effect on each other's future. And when you have someone, it's like a marriage, and you have to have the same course, and you have to have the same focus, because if one wants to go this way or go this way, it's eventually going to go so far that you're going to be like, there's such a strain. But if you're aligned the whole time, then it won't be. And so when I said we broke up, when we did break up, I did become really good friends with him again. And when he left the band, I always say that he left or kicked him out, he left. And we didn't talk. So that part I didn't like. What I did like, so me and Sean, my friendship with Sean is awesome. Just the fact of, one time some guy sent a photo and he had a Lanemeyer tattoo on his arm. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It was right below a Hot Water Music tattoo. It was pretty intense. I was like,
in good company.
I was like, that's intense to be next to that. Playing shows, man.
Yeah.
We just, any show that we'd show up with on tour, we played a show called the Brownstone Cafe, I think in Sarasota. And these kids just went off. And every time we show up and kids were singing back, there's no greater feeling.
Yeah.
Because your whole day is full of, anxiety, but you're always thinking about, you're never in the moment. You're always thinking about what's next. Even when I'm sitting at dinner and I'm at a restaurant, I'm always thinking what I'm going to get next. I'm actually enjoying what's in front of me. Mm-hmm. I'm not enjoying that beer. I'm not enjoying that sandwich. I was doing this last night. I had an appetizer. I'm just looking. I'm going like this, with the things. I'm focus on what you're eating. And then when that's done, then pick it up and look at something else. When you're playing a show, you're in that space for that time, and I think that was the greatest feeling. So I get to do that again in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I can't wait, dude. I'm so excited.
Yeah, my older brother, who I used to go to shows with all the time.
Yeah.
He is in the middle of a house move, and it's like right at the moment where he just can't go. And so I was like, who am I gonna go with that like would really appreciate it? And my brother-in-law, who's a lot younger than me, he's really he's expanding his music horizons. He's been listening to a wide variety, going to all these different, like, he just got back from the Firefly Festival. So he's like really, and I'm like, you know what? He's gonna love this. He's never been to a show that is like
just small enough.
Just small, yeah.
But like there's gonna be this weird dynamic going on that it's gonna be. Yeah, I think how old is he?
He's 24, 25?
Yeah, I think that'll be a cool experience.
Yeah, and I think one of his friends is coming too, so it's gonna be cool. He's gonna love it. So
that's awesome.
So outside of Lanemeyer, what is your favorite New Jersey music scene memory? Like overall. I'll tell you mine while you're thinking about it.
Yeah, that'll help me trigger this.
So mine, and it was embarrassing, but it was just great. It was a great show. It's when At the Drive-In and the Get Up Kids played in, was that Manville?
Wayne.
Was it Wayne or Manville?
I think they did both.
They did both. So I think it was the Manville one.
Okay.
And...
Are you sure it was Manville? I thought there was only the one show at the Wayne Firehouse. Because someone had talked about this in the podcast, and I think they switched at the end, but they said Manville first, and they said, wait, no.
I'm pretty sure that this show specifically, maybe it wasn't At the Drive-In.
Oh, no, it was Manville. It was in that little box that was the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was video. Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
I even think Midtown played that show.
Yeah, I think they did.
So that's when I first started shaving my head.
Okay.
And I bought it was dumb, and I bought a battery operated, buzzer. And of course I'm shaving my head right before the show.
Oh no.
And the battery died.
Oh no.
Here.
Oh no.
So I only had like the back half unshaven. And I was like, I gotta go. And so I'm wearing a hat the whole time.
I was gonna say, thank God for hats.
Yeah. And my older brother, his best friend, he's kind of like my it's one of those like brothers you never had type of thing.
Yeah.
And he's gonna pick on me, and he takes my hat off in the middle of it. So embarrassing, whatever.
Oh, man.
But it was just one of the best shows. It was one of the best shows, but
yeah. I mean, At the Drive-In. And the Get Up Kids, did you see the video that they posted from the Skaters World show?
Mm-hmm.
I was at that show, and I didn't know who the Get Up Kids were. So when I saw them, I had no reference to the songs they're singing, so I couldn't have... When you know the songs, it just puts you in this whole other level of enjoyment. But when you don't know the songs, you can appreciate it, and there's something about the energy that just can suck you in.
Yeah. And
then I bought I bought the CD. I bought 4 Minute Mile after that. And then after, I was like, damn, I wish I knew these songs when I saw them, especially they played the songs from Woodson and all that. And when I was looking at the video, I'm like, man, they went off. Like, they brought it up there, but At the Drive-In. When I saw them at Coney Island High, and this would be one of them, but when I saw them at Coney Island High, I had listened to In Casino out before that, and I hated it when I first heard it. I was like, this is gross. This is so annoying. What the hell is this sound? But then I heard that song Now We Toast, and it's like dance just a little bit. That song. And I don't know if that's the right word.
So the battery died, and we're just gonna go from where we were, kind of.
I'm gonna pretend like I didn't get any of those questions, and I'll be answering for the first time.
Yeah. We're going from At the Drive-In to where did you get the idea for This Was the Scene?
Welcome, everyone, to This Was the Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000s New Jersey punk rock scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle.
Okay, so This Was the Scene. So having your company, as a creative, I like to create things that... What I've been doing for 7 years is creating things for other people. And I feel that internally, I know there's something wrong with that because I feel weight. I feel stress with that. And I think people dismiss that sometimes in life, and they're like, well, I'll just show up to this crappy job I don't like, or I'll date this person I don't want to date, or I'll go hang out and do this thing that I don't want to do. And I've noticed that I've been trying to read that sensory part of that. What I started to feel is like, I want to feel lighter in life. I don't want to feel so heavy. Mm-hmm. And I have my own company, and I mentioned this before the battery died. Because you have your own company doesn't mean like you're swimming in money or everything's going great. It's just a different direction of, you have more control about your direction because it's yours. And it just really doesn't go in my direction. So I thought, what's one thing I really loved? And I always go back to, I'm not one of those people who goes back in life and says, oh, those are the good old days. I wish it was like that. Because then you're missing out on just living. And I said, I loved that time, but I don't define that as that was the greatest time of my life. But it was a great time in my life. And I've always wanted to do this documentary of the Jersey scene, but it would take too much time. I'd have to fly up to Jersey, and, like we are in North Carolina right now. And so it's like, what's the fastest way to do this where I can maybe start in that direction and maybe it will lead to a documentary?
Yeah. Now you're going to have all this audio that you can use for a documentary now.
That's a good point. I actually am thinking about potentially turning it into a book, getting it all transcribed, mm-hmm. and then doing that. But so there's all these opportunities. But the initial one was I wrote a list with, I physically wrote a list, 10 people that I wanted to interview. Because last year I did a podcast. It was all about business, about marketing my business, and I hated it because there was no depth in it. And so I said, I want to do this. I'll write a list of who I want to interview. I'm going to control this. No one's going to tell me. Sometimes people reach out and say, hey, you should do this. And I'm like, no, this is mine. This is mine. I'm not giving you any of this. This is mine. So this is the 10 people I'll do, and I'll stop it after that. I'll name it season 1, because then there's definitely an end. And I reached out to the first person, which was Heath from Midtown, and I said, hey, would you want to do this? He said, yes. And I said, okay, so then I started checking off the list, and some people said no, and it kind of threw me off. I was like, why would you not want to talk about this? And I then, in the North Jersey group, I said, hey, on this date, I'll launch. No, I created a video promo, and I came with the name. This was the scene, because it was like all different iterations, and this was like, so before this was my scene, but that leads it to me. But I want to open it to everyone else, and say like this, you little rapscallions, like this is how it was, and people would, attach themselves to that. So it took me like a day, and I came up with like a logo intro, and I took all of the flyer images from the Jersey pop punk scene. So I literally went through all of them and copied and pasted them into Photoshop and made this collage. And I'm like, I need this branding color. So I made it yellow and I had this burn effect. And then this was a scene, and I put this effect on it where it looks like it's like all kind of distorted and things, like it was old school, but not too much contrived. It was, didn't want to detach from, I wanted to make it look grungy, and I wanted to have it be a throwback to the days where we would make flyers and it looked handwritten. So there's this whole big thing of like what that whole logo, why that is. And so I put this thing, it was like a picture of that, and it darkened and said coming soon. And I put that on to the Facebook group. It was kind of like, this is coming. And then I did a logo, did like an intro where it was like ding, ding, ding. And then it played Boxcar. And it said, next Friday, I'm launching this. I had nothing ready. I had 3 interviews done with Chris Badami at Portrait Studios, Heath from Midtown, and then Josh from Home Beginnings. I had them recorded, but I hadn't edited them yet. So I was like, okay, well now I got to figure out how to edit this thing. Right. And then I edited the first one, and then right the day before, because I'm talking to people on the phone. I have a headset on, I'm talking through my computer and Skype. I'm talking on their phone, and it's too trebly. So I reach out to Dave Patino, who used to be. I will say the band name because I think it'll get thrown off in YouTube, but he was in Day at the Fair for a while. He was in Lanemeyer for a hot minute. He played guitar. When Heiner left the band, we got Dave, and then when Sean left the band, Dave played drums. So I've known him forever, and I said, hey dude, I need something to add to this to make it better. He goes, oh, there's a compression setting in Premiere, and I use Premiere to edit audio, and I threw it on it, and it made it sound like professional. And then I was like, oh my God. So then I launched it that day, and I luckily from doing the podcast prior, I knew that I had to upload it to Libsyn. I knew that I had to have it all set up so it was going to disperse it to everywhere. Yeah. What I didn't realize is that SoundCloud, you have to have a subscription or it caps you at X amount. So by the 5th episode, it said error uploading to SoundCloud, and everyone's like, oh, it's on SoundCloud. I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to pay more money for that. And Libsyn's $20 a month.
Right.
SoundCloud is, could be like $20 a month for a premium or something. I'm like, I'll spend just enough in this. Like I bought the domain name, I do these things. But yeah, it was just the whole really answering the question was I needed a win. and I wanted to try something that was for me. And it's insane. As of today, I have 5,400 downloads since March, and it's only on episode 16. And my first podcast, I had 20 episodes, and I think it was like 400 downloads in 20 weeks. So you're onto something.
Yeah.
Especially when people are literally messaging me and saying, thank you for doing this. It's crazy. Like, they're like legit going out of their way to say that.
Yeah. It really is. It's very nostalgic. It's educational too, because like I'm learning stuff about.
Oh yeah.
Like stuff that I would have never even thought about before.
Yeah. And it's fun too talking to these people, because I mean, some of these guys, some people, I never really had this really long conversation with. A lot of these conversations are probably the longest I've ever talked to some of these people. Like Heath from Midtown,
He's always been a quiet guy.
He was always a quiet dude, and I saw him. We did a Lanemeyer reunion in 2000. We did a bunch of them actually, which is really funny. We did one in Morristown years ago, and he came to that, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, you're here. He's like, yeah, I would totally come to this. I'm like, that's so awesome, and that was probably the most I said to him. And then that interview was like an hour and a half, and that was as long as I talked to him. And it's like when you hear the interviews, it sounds like we know each other,
right?
But that connection to the scene is what connects us.
Exactly. If
I was on the phone like, hey man, how's life today? If we were talking about, I was thinking about this today. If we were talking about present day, the conversation would probably be like, it's like when you're talking to someone catching up, you're like, okay, I want to get off the phone now. We have nothing else to talk about. But in the past, it's like a huge well of stuff you can talk about.
Oh yeah. Have you ever thought about having bands that are from way out of state come on the show? Bands like Newfound Glory, right? For bands that played a ton of their early shows in New Jersey, River City High.
So they're actually, season 2, my idea is going to be to get the bands that influenced us. Mm-hmm. So the Newfound Glories, Jimmy Eat World, like I want to go big, like Alkaline Trio.
Hey, Alkaline's back.
Yeah, I know. They're touring. Actually, they're playing down the street from here in August. I think I got my ticket. It's like a Tuesday. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to this. Please play all the old stuff, because I don't give a crap about the new stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there's that aspect of it, because I was thinking, how do I expand from this? Because a lot of the bands I'm actually branching out to, some people will reach out to me and say, hey, man, we'd love to be interviewed. And I'm usually not a fan of that. I don't like, it's like I have, and it's like you have to kind of be polite about it. But there's also, I don't know, maybe I just have this weird unspoken ethic about that. But it's like, hey man, I'd love to be interviewed. I'm like, I don't know you. I just have this thing. And some bands actually, someone actually did that, and I do want to interview them. But I thought for season 1 it would just be, let me broaden this. I'm reached out to a couple people, and I don't want to just do bands. I want to do record stores. I've got one of them coming up. I want to do people who did merch.
The people who did the smaller record labels.
Yeah.
I think even the singer of Pillow, I think even had a record label or something like that.
Oh my god, I forgot about Pillow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's what happens, and I go, oh wow, and just when I think I'm running out of interviews, I've got I could do another 50 or 100.
Antonio from Dharma Boys has a recording studio in his house.
But was it open in the 90s, late 90s? Was he doing records then?
And it's because I told him, you need to get off and start recording, because he would record everything himself for himself.
Did he?
So
that'd be a great interview then. He was funny, dude.
He recorded, I think, the first batch of Fairmont albums, a lot of the small bands.
Okay.
A lot of the newbies that were coming
as long as it was a part of the late 90s or 2000s, like that is the theme.
And Antonio's a really funny guy.
Oh, he's funny. Yeah, I remember him always running around back then. I think he actually did the video that's of him walking around at that Bordentown show where it was Austin Humble and Shower with Goats and all that.
He didn't even hear about the reunion show, so I told him about it, and I think he's going to make it. So
oh, really?
I hope he does.
Yeah, I've been trying to do different boosts and stuff, and hitting people with ads, and it's the only time Facebook ads have ever worked for me.
I just basically been sharing with everybody that I know would appreciate it. So.
Oh, it's awesome. No, I appreciate that.
So this may not be something you want to answer, and if you want to skip it, it's perfectly fine.
I have an open book, man.
But who do you most looking forward to talking with on the podcast? Even if it's somebody that you're hoping to get at some point.
I really want to get Ricky from Bomb Shelter, and I really want to get Jay Turon is who I really want to get. I've loved talking to everybody, and I'm not doing that just to be PC. You can hear it in the conversation.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's so casual, and everyone who comes on, they're like, I don't know, are we gonna have enough to talk about? An hour and a half later, they're like, we can keep going. I'm like, just let me just ask questions because I know how to dig down, and because I'm really interested in like what they have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've loved all of them, but I think Jay Turon, he's a big one. And then after that, it's gonna be in the season 2, how I can get those bigger bands. Because if I can get like Matt Skiba on or Jim from Jimmy Eat World, like all I want to do with Jimmy Eat World is talk to them about Static Prevails and then into Clarity, and then say like, you know, what was Claire about? You know, like what's the first song of like ding 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 ding? Like how did they go from such a rough sound to such a smooth sound?
I want to know why he a lot of the songs that I think the songs that are on Static Prevails, I think, or might have been Clarity. I can't remember which one. Which one was the second?
Well, Jimmy Eat Worlds is an actual first CD where Tom was the lead singer, but then Static Prevails and then Clarity.
Okay, so Clarity. So Jimmy wrote a bunch of songs under the name Go Big Casino.
Oh, really?
That was like him and a piano. And all the songs wound up on Clarity.
Really?
Full band. I can't find it anywhere.
Holy crap.
But I had it when years ago.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So
That's pretty cool.
It was out of tune, it was bad.
Well, but I mean,
recording quality was horrible.
But that's what I loved about it. Their split 7-inch with Mineral, where the Christmas cards on it. I mean, it was so raw, but there was such a melody to it. I mean, all I want to do is just say, like, look, I know you did Futures and everything past that. I want to talk about this. And I think a lot of those bands would be like, oh, man, yeah, I want to talk about that. Because that's when they were in vans and stuff. And so I'm looking forward to, that's my next step is I have to write that list, which I did write that list, but then I have to reach out to the first person.
A lot of times on my YouTube channel, I talk about the technical stuff behind a lot of photography things.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the technical stuff behind the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you recording it? So with the podcast I do for Imagely, the company I work for full time, I use YouTube Live for the face-to-face and video recording. But then I use YouTube Live lets you like to go live and record, but not public. You can do it private.
Oh, okay.
And then I use
is it Hangout still, or is it
Live? Well, they renamed it to YouTube Live.
Okay.
A Hangout is when you can't record. A YouTube Live is when you can record.
Okay.
And then I use Zencastr, which is have you ever heard of Zencastr?
Possibly. No, I'm thinking Zen Planner. No, so
okay.
Zencastr.
So Zencastr, it's a R at the end, not ER at the end. But basically, it allows you to do either voice over IP if you don't need video.
Okay.
Or you can turn off voice over IP and just record. Basically, it uses new technology that Google Chrome offers to record locally to your machine from a website. So Zencastr will actually record your voice from your computer and my voice from my computer at the same time, synced up, and then when you hit stop, it uploads it to my Dropbox.
Really?
And their paid plans offer like other stuff like editing and stuff. But so I use the two, and then I do like a clapper, and then I can sync it all up in Final Cut Pro. But so that's how I do mine, and so that way like I got clean audio on both ends, and because video just makes it complicated when you're doing it remotely.
Yeah, I never do any video when I'm doing it.
So what's your setup like? Is it
okay? So I've got a MacBook Pro, and I'm just stating that just to say it. I have a MacBook Pro, and I have an iPhone. So the way it's set up is, let's say I'm going to interview you. I'm like, hey man, you download this? Like, okay, cool. So okay, you got to download Skype either to your phone or your computer. And I'm going to call you at this time, and we're going to talk. So in Skype, I had to buy a call recorder as a separate plugin.
Ecamm call recorder?
I think that's it. And it's funny too because right when I'm going to interview someone, it'll be like, Skype has an update. I'm like, no, I'm not updating. I'm like 5 minutes before I get on the call with this person. But with this, it's recording it compressed, and I haven't tried doing it uncompressed yet, which I think would probably be a smart move, but I don't want to try it because I don't want to do an hour and a half
big giant files.
Yeah, well, it's just more. I just don't want to do it and have it be messed up, so I lose all that content.
You got to do a test call.
I know. I'm just so afraid of doing it. So I do that. So I call them on Skype, and when they get on the phone, if they use their phone, I say, okay, put in your headphones because it won't work. Like put your headphones in, A, because it'll get rid of the echo, and B, because if I'm being interviewed and, you know, I'm in a room by myself, I don't want to be sitting like this the whole time and have my phone burn my ear. Yeah. So I do the headphones so they can have their hand down, listen to what I'm saying, and when they talk, they can just kind of do like this back and forth. So yeah, it is kind of like the mic is kind of moving around, but I haven't really caught where that's been a problem.
Yeah, it's been sounding good.
Yeah, and it's funny. I got shredded by some guy last week for. It ended up turning out really well. We ended up talking to each other offline. But he does podcasts and he records them very well. So it was for the Mike OCG interview from One Cool Guy. This guy goes, great interview. However, the audio sucks. He just listed all of these things of what he hated about it. And I was waiting for something like this to happen because you can't just have all this praise. Someone's always got to say. But it was funny because I woke up that morning and I had a PayPal. I had PayPal on my phone and it was like, you know, someone donated $20. I was like, oh, cool. And anytime someone donates, I email them like, you're so awesome. Thank you so much. So I email it. And then I go on thing. I'm like, wait a minute. That guy is the guy who just donated the $20. So I had sent them that. And I get in my own head of like, I'm going to send his money back. I'm going to this, whatever. But I'm like, all right. Because I go in full on attack mode if someone attacks me. And I'm bad with that. But I've gotten better at just like, all right, let it go. It'll dissipate. But I wrote on the comment, I'll get to all of that, ... Just kind of yeah, man, I'm on that. And then he wrote back, he's like, I probably should have sent that as a message to you. And I was like, whatever. So he
did that in public?
Oh, he did that.
Oh, boy. I didn't even notice that.
I posted it in the North Jersey Facebook. Oh, no, either on the Facebook group. No, Mike shared it. I think it was either Mike or Brett. No, I think it was Mike. Mike shared it, and then the guy said, love the interview, but here's all the reasons why the podcast, the quality sucks. And he put it publicly, and I just wrote back, yeah, I'll get on all of that, ... Kind of like yeah, dude. And he wrote back on that thread, it's like, oh, shoot, I probably should have, hey, I probably should have messaged that to you. My bad. And I liked the comment. But he emailed me back. He's like, hey, man, sorry that I put you on blast. I hate, I didn't mean it to come off like that. And everybody was like, and it softened it up. And I was like, no, man, it's totally cool. I totally understand. I said, by the way, like, what are some tips? Let me know. And he gave me all this technical stuff. And I was like, great. That's a great reference when I want to eventually go back and do that stuff. Because he was saying you can have them record on their end and record on my end. Yeah. But I have a headset that I use, which I think I'm going to upgrade. I think it was like a $40 headset. I wasn't even thinking that much, like $19. So I have a headset that I record into my computer, my MacBook Pro, and record that, and then it saves a file to a folder. And when I go to edit it, I use Premiere. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go that far into it? Yeah. Okay, so I use Adobe Premiere just because I do video editing and it's more comfortable for me. Mm-hmm. I could probably use whatever Adobe's audio editing is. Yeah. I don't even know. Audition. I could use Audition. Actually, I don't think it's... Oh, yeah, Audition. Or there's also a free one that you can download.
There's Audacity. Open source, free.
Yep. Yeah. You could do it. But I just like the interface of Premiere, and it's the same thing. So I'll listen to that, and I cut it up, and I edit it down. And then when that's done... I'm like, okay, cool. So that's that file. And then I'll do a teaser where I'll do After Effects. I have graphics that I use, and that's like a whole different story. But the process is Monday or Tuesday, I'll start the edit, and I'll take a clip where there's like a 10-second spot where I think it's like a good, preview of what they're going to talk about. I'll put that into a new, I'll take that existing file, I'll duplicate it. And then, because in Premiere, like, you don't want to just start a new file on your own. If it's a video file, you always drag it onto the sequence, and it'll make the sequence match like the frame rate and the time and everything like that. So I'll just duplicate the sequence that was made from the audio file, and I'll cut everything else out. I'll move this all the way to 0 seconds, and then I'll take a compression setting that's in Premiere and I'll drag it onto it. And someone's like growling. I'll drag it onto it, and then I'll export that out as an MP3, which probably should be a WAV, but I'll just do MP3, bring it into After Effects. And I have this whole template set up where it's,
the album artwork and
the album or their promo comes in, their name, and then like there's the audio, and I'll render that out and post on the Facebook group, and like mine and share it to kind of give like a teaser through the week. But yeah, and then at the end, and then Thursday before it goes live, I'll just do a write up where I have like my intro. So I have a text document, and I'll duplicate it. So it's got the intro that I always say, like, hey, this is welcome. This was the scene, blah blah blah. Then there's a space open for talking about the band, which I hate that part because there's no information about these bands. So I'm looking online, like the one today for Taxi Cab Samurais. I was like, here's an interview with Dave, and here's the band members. Here's who they're influenced, and I did some joke about Dave's hair, and I was like, and I go, here's what we talk about, and I always do a list. So when I'm editing it, I'm also keeping a list of bullet points. So I'll be like, okay, when I'm listening to it and editing, I'm like, okay, here's a talking point, here's talking. I'll do like 10 of them, which I think. In theory, they say you should do like 3 to kind of give a teaser, but again, I'm doing my own thing. And then I'll do the intro, and I have a template set up where the structure goes a clip of the interview, the opening song, which is an Arcade Academy song, so I don't have to lose licensing on that.
Right.
And then it goes, and then I do my recording of my intro, which I record the day before, and I'll cut that down, reading off the script from that. And I always have my ending point of talking about like the Lanemeyer show, having a space open if I do get a sponsor or just anything I want to shout out. And then it's like, subscribe. I always ask people to subscribe and leave reviews, which is working. Yep. And then like, here we go. And then I have a static sound that I have that goes right into that. So you always want to have kind of like, it's like if you're reading a book, you have the cover. You don't want to just open up and where page 1 is just, you're in the book. There's a lead in, and then there's always like that blank page, and then it starts. Yeah. I never realized that until I made a book of how emotionally that actually sets you up for it. So it's like in a podcast, to give a clip, it introduces someone to what they're getting themselves into. It's like it's like how audio or Audible give you pieces of the book and you can hear it. It gets you more inclined. Your percentage rate of buying goes way higher. Yeah. So it's like I want them to be bought into listening to it. Then I'm going to tell them what it's about. So in the bullet points, there might be something where someone goes, oh man, I remember that. And now I want to listen to this for that. So it's like I'm building all this up, so I want to suck them into it.
Yeah, I probably have to start doing that for the podcast that I do because we hired somebody to do an intro and outro. Yeah, which was surprisingly affordable for he does like the Tim Ferriss intros and stuff. Like,
holy cow,
you would think it would be like a fortune for somebody who does like Amy Porterfield's podcast, like all these giant podcasts. And it's so affordable. Shocked, but
it helps at the very beginning to give it, because one, it personalizes the person that you're talking. So you think of the experience that someone has of looking at this. They don't know who you are. If I see all these new podcasts, I have this thing of kind of like, my time is valuable, and you have to really win that over. It's like a new band. Your friend sends you new music, you're like, okay, I like this. But then when you like the song, you're like, where else is there stuff? Right? It's like brief. Yeah. What you attach to it. So you almost want to do that with the podcast. There's so many out there, but who's your audience going to listen to? What's going to get them to stay sucked into that? And then tell them what they're about to get themselves into before they sit there for an hour and a half or 30 minutes or whatever it's going to be. Yeah. Because that gets them intrigued, and they're like, when the waiter's giving you the special, they don't say, we have steak. They say, we have a steak with this garlic butter sauce and this, and you're like, oh, now I want that. Oh, it's $40? Well, I got the garlic butter sauce. I'll spend the $40 for that. So you got to tell them about the garlic butter sauce.
Yeah, the garlic butter sauce. So now you have to start the next episode with, and in today's episode, you're getting garlic butter sauce.
Everyone's like, what is this?
So you're just using a headset as your mic. You're not using like a... Have you thought about upgrading to, or eventually maybe?
Probably. So if this thing I would like this thing to turn into something. Right. I love interviewing people. I have a really good time with it. And if I can make it into a paying thing, like if I became like this YouTube thing where I was making like, $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month, if I was living off of this, I would totally upgrade. There might be little things. I'm going to add. Like I'm definitely going to get a new microphone. I am looking for a new software to get people in, because if I'm going to start going for these, I hate to say like the bigger bands, because I don't want to take away from the people that I've been interviewing, but if I want to get like the Jimmy Worlds and stuff. I have to make it very easy for them.
So what Tim Ferriss does for his...
What does he do?
Now, you don't have to go to the scale of quality equipment that he does, but he literally sends, all right, you're going to be at this hotel. I will mail you a microphone and a recorder and plug it in and just record while we're on the phone. And then it'll be recorded to a Zoom thing, this little portable, but the microphone goes right into it, and then they put it back in like a Pelican case and ship it back to you.
There's got to be
There's affordable ways to do it, of course.
No, I'm saying like there has to be a business model for podcasts. If you're a subscriber to that, how you can send that to people. I'm always thinking of new businesses. And it's like my own frustrations. If I could have a subscription where it just sends that to someone's house, and then it's just all you have to do is open it and put it back in a box, and makes it very easy for someone. Yeah. Holy crap. I think I just came up with my new business idea. It's I mean, I'd like to be able to, I mean, at the end of the day, I have my own, like I said, I have my own business. I should, if this became something, he also, Tim Ferriss, I listen to him all the time. He finds ways to hack things. What he used to do or does, instead of flying out to see people, he flies them to him, and he'll put them up in a hotel, and he'll kind of stack it where that whole day he's got 5 people in town, and he just goes in their hotel and interviews them and things like that. And I thought that was brilliant. Or I think he did that when he does like his doctor's experiments for all his life hacks and stuff, his health hacks. But it's like bring them to you. He said I could be spending the same amount of money or less, and it just solves that problem. But for now though, it's just download Skype to your phone, and that's always an interesting conversation.
What I would recommend upgrading to, which I think is a good podcast host mic as an intro, is from Blue. They make the mic called a Yeti.
Yeah, the Snowball.
So they have the Snowball and the Yeti. The Yeti is definitely Snowball it's okay.
Yeah, it's like the Best Buy version of like kind of like a means to an end.
Yeah. The Yeti is looks like a legit broadcast mic.
Really?
And it's $100 for this it's a USB based mic.
Really?
And you can even you can use it as your headphones. You can plug in headphones into it as well.
So here's the thing I like about the headphones is when I'm talking, I typically don't just sit there. And the whole thing is done through Skype, but it's just audio. And the way I have it set up is, so I have a co-working space that I work out of, and I have my apartment, which is 2 blocks down the street. And depending on where I want to record it, like sometimes I'll just stay there, or sometimes I'll walk to my apartment and do it. But I also, in my apartment, I have this little Boston Terrier puppy that wants my attention when I'm recording. So as I'm walking around, like I like to stand up and bring my computer with me, and I walk and talk, because I think you have more energy with that. And I'll go and sometimes I'll sit in my bed, and he'll jump up with his toy and start doing this. I'm like, oh my God. So I get up and walk around. But I like the walking around aspect. And in the co-working space, they have these telephone booths, and I'll bring my computer there, and I like to stand. So I feel like if I have a mic in front of me, it's gonna make me stationary.
So
which I don't really like.
Yes and no. I mean, so I do it in video. So when I do mine, I have to sort of stay in frame. But my mic, I have one of those like desk boom arms for the microphone, so it's like hanging in front.
So you can get up and like move it and things.
I can move it, and it's quiet because I've also got it's a Rode one, which is it's silent, and then I also have like one of those shock mounts for it.
Oh, okay.
So I can literally tap the microphone on the backside where it's not recording anyone hearing it. So I can move it, no problem, but I can also just walk around and I don't have to talk. And then when I need to talk, go back to it.
Yeah, I have to try it. It's just my style is I like to be in the conversation, so I'll stop them. So if I'm but I also have to hear them too.
Right.
I like to have them in my head where if I don't want to hear that they're far away.
So I do AirPods, which looks silly on video because it looks like earrings, but... so I've got their voice coming into my ears, but then I got the microphone there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down to try anything. As long as it just goes to, I just become very, I'm open to things, and then sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
Because my initial thing, a lot of times is nah, I'm good. But then when I try it, I'm like, oh, God, that's way better.
But then again, your voice sounds clear the way you're doing it.
The only bad part is that sometimes it'll pick up those pockets of spit, and that gets really annoying. And I'll even stop people sometimes when they're talking, like with Heath. I was like, "Yeah, man, what's the wind?" He goes, "Oh man, I'm driving in my truck right now," which I think it adds to the element. It adds to the punk rock aspect of the show, but there's certain things that could be annoying too long, where people have just their fuse is like this nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, especially if I watch a video, like I can relate and understand, but if I'm living through it, I'm like, dude, come on.
I mean, even
with the smacking.
Even timings of episodes. So every episode that you've put out, I've listened to it in full because it's just that it's engaging, right?
Yeah.
But in the podcast that I do, if most episodes are 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But lately I've been putting out like 5-minute episodes here and there just to break up that, like, you know, the attention span issue, right?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the subject, like I said, like.
It depends on the audience and what are they getting out of it. What my audience is getting out of
nostalgia.
It's nostalgia.
Yeah.
They're actually, in a sense, if you think about it psychologically, they're taking a break for an hour and a half in some aspect from their life and going back in time.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to give their time to that. When you're talking about the present day, people are giving you theories about what they think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I love listening to this. I love listening to my podcast. How I Built This with Guy Raz for NPR. I mean, he's talking to, like, you know, LinkedIn and Google and Spanx and all these people, where they struggled. But it's always going. God, my stomach is like churning. It always goes back in time because it happened, and they're not giving me this glimpse, this like crap of here's my theory about things happening. It's like everyone has a theory about things happening, and then when that happens, like, well, I guess I was wrong. It's listening to like sports commentators about their prediction stuff. But when you go in the past, it's concrete. You can't change that.
Yeah.
And also, it's what are you attached to in that? You know, everyone's like, oh man, you're not just remembering that moment. You're remembering where you were in your life. And so for an hour and a half, you're actually living in your 19-year-old self, and that's what's going to get people to stay there.
Yeah.
When you know, and that's why I like that aspect of it. And you know, the Tim Ferrisses of the world and all these new entrepreneurs and, you know, their 10 secret tips. It's all crap because it's all, you're trying to sell something that doesn't have an essence to begin with. Tim Ferriss has essence because he backs it and he goes, I have a product that I'm doing. It's either my book or it's my show or there's something on it. There's these new people that do things where they're giving you their secrets, but they're not selling you anything. They're selling you air.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, testing the waters with things that aren't working. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, it's like, well, why wouldn't someone listen for 30 minutes? Like, what's the reason behind that? Make that better so you don't have to do these tests. Like the 5-minute thing, I was thinking about that too, because some people are like, I'm so sick of waiting till Friday. A lot of people are like, I'm really excited to get this on Friday. I'm like, well, that's the kind of the cool part of it. It's like, you have to wait.
Yeah.
You know? And
what you could do is take like a piece of the conversation that's either at the end or something, or in the middle, and take it out of the big episode. Literally take it out.
Yeah.
And then midweek do a little 5.
Here's something you won't actually get in the actual underground. You know, I thought that was a good. I think that's where the YouTube channel that is an untapped resource that I see huge growth in that because that could even turn, because I'll be in Jersey for a whole week before the show where I'm going to take my camera or even just my phone for the hell of it and just get. You know, like talk to Jeremy from Humble. Right. You know, get footage of us recording. You know, that whole week, just put out content like in that moment, and then throw that on the YouTube channel. But I think just the things like that, I could do clips like that from old episodes, because a lot of times I don't really leave out a lot of footage, a lot of audio. Like Josh Humble, we left out about 10 minutes of something because we were talking about like fonts, and I just did an episode this week with another person who's going to come up and. We kind of went off on a political rant for a second, and I'm like, I think I might take that out because it's kind of taking away from this, but it's really good. I might take that out, and like, there's a piece like that to take and put on YouTube. So now, in a strategic sense, that could be the lead in to go there, and then I could take that and I could put that on Wednesdays maybe, where it splits the week up. Or I could take an old episode from Josh and do like a rewind of, here was a really funny part from this clip. I think you should check it out, and at the end, be like, you want to hear the full one? Go here. So there's definitely a marketing strategy in there. Sometimes you just can't see the forest through the trees especially for your own stuff. Yeah. When you're in it, if I was someone consulting in marketing, I'd probably give them this whole list of things to do. But since it's my own, I can't clearly look at how I can really do it. Yeah. And I think I'm missing out on a lot of opportunities.
Sometimes things just fall into place over time.
You
know,
like this conversation. This helps me think of like that whole thing of leaving a piece out. Like, man, and I don't think. initially, I don't know how I'd leave that out, but that's a really smart idea.
So there's a very big podcast that I was fortunate to be on, actually just published on Monday right before I left.
Oh wow.
That he does the full episodes. He takes out a good 10 minutes or so, and it's for paid members of his membership.
That's the whole other thing too.
Yeah. So in order to get the full thing, you have to he doesn't make it available as only the 10 minutes. It's just if you're a paid member, you get the full thing.
That would definitely be. That's what I'm saying. There's where I thought in the beginning it would just be 10 interviews and that'd be it. I'm like, oh well, there's only really 10 people that I think that would be the best interviews, or who I personally know that make it easy for me to talk to them. And I limited myself, kind of like horse blinders or whatever. But now that I'm doing this more, there's such I could turn this into a career. Like I could make this, even though it's based back then when I started thinking, well, yeah, there's all these other bands that are still around and then they're still influenced. That would create a bigger audience. Because once you bring in a band like Alkaline Trio or Jimmy Eat Worlds from back then into this thing,
you're going to attract a lot more.
Then someone in California would be like, oh my God, but then it brings them back into that space. But again, it doesn't take away from that. I don't want to take away from that core audience of who I built this around. And again, that's like a punk rock ethic kind of thing that I think that I always ask people like, what do you stick with you? It's like, I think that's the aspect that I built this for myself, for a crowd that gets it. And now I'm seeing that the audience that enjoys that. I don't want to, it's like the band before they break it, when they start, more people start hearing of that band, you're like, well, that was my band. Like you were there from the beginning. It's like, it's almost treating it like it's like a band, it's very specific. And I don't want that audience to not get what they came for initially. Yeah. I don't want to be like, well, now I'm talking to, Machine Gun Kelly about music. It's like, well, that was the complete departure from where this started. Right. Even though he does reference Weezer and things like that from back in the day. So, but as long as it goes back to the late 90s, there's a thread to that. Right. So,
yeah. I think there's a lot of ways, a lot of bands that we're probably not even thinking of that would be a perfect fit.
Oh yeah,
as a guest.
Yeah, I think bigger. I mean, I even like old bands. Like you think of like My Pal Trigger, Discount. Obscure bands that were. There's the big bands. There was the local bands. There's like the middle, and then these guys were kind of around here. I mean, Heath out there like huge.
Ted Leo.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Somebody that you would never think of. Okay, but he was all over the place in Jersey at that time. He's from Jersey, but
is he really?
Yeah.
Get out of here. I did not know that.
Yeah. I don't remember where in Jersey, but Fairmont played like 3 or 4 shows with him.
Seriously?
Yeah, at the Palace and...
I thought he was from California because he's on Lookout. That's why. I think anytime I think of bands on the label, I think, oh, well, they're from where the label's from. It's stupid.
I think I used to think that way too.
It's like, oh, they're Fat Records? All Fat Records are live in California? Yeah. They're all from there?
Yeah.
I think that's dumb.
It's like, Midtown was on drive-thru. They gotta be from California.
Yeah, they've got to be living in LA right now. No, they're from Union area.
So I have 2 questions left. The first is, speaking of nostalgia, since you started this podcast, what music from back in the day are you finding yourself listening to more and more? Because if I showed you my phone right now, you'd be like, oh shit.
Because you're going back.
Everything that's actually downloaded to my phone is like it's like pinball records.
Honestly, I never stopped. I have a Spotify playlist that I always throw. I always talk about Spotify. I think it's the greatest thing in the world because one day, all random days, my mind just goes. And I have a very good memory that goes back to when I was 5. I can remember things. That's why what makes the podcast work for me is because I can literally remember these things. And sometimes I'm a little off, but sometimes I'm spot on, which is people are like, how do you remember this? But I think it's also because I've never really left a lot of things behind in music-wise. So I'll always be guitarists have this one song called angry punk rock song or something like this, got this cool bass line. It was from their first CD with Derek from Lagwagon was their drummer. And so I'll remember some random songs like that and I'll go look and it's on Spotify and I'll drag it in my playlist. Or I'll find an 80s song and drag my playlist. So I'm always looking for old songs. When I interviewed Tom, I went back and listened to all Bigwig stuff. I went back to Unmarried Melodies. I'm like, oh my god, 1-800-WHIPPED. I'm like, how did I forget that song? And so I did that. But back then, I just did Taxi Cab. I never listened to Taxi Cab back then. One Cool Guy, I never had their record. But I remember their songs. So when I go back and listen to the NJPP archives, shout to Joe Polito if he's watching. You can listen. He has them all on SoundCloud. So then before the interview, I'll listen to them. I'm like, oh man, I remember that song. And so in that moment, I'll listen to that. But it doesn't become a part of my week after that. Sometimes it'll carry over a little bit. Sometimes I like a little bit, but I did the other day. I posted in the group about how I found Sticker for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I never listened to them back then. I always knew of them. Yeah. Have you listened to them?
Yeah, I listened to it. It's pretty good.
I was like, this is for back then, and there was some good hooks. I'm like, Jesus, this is really good, And so yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't made a lot of the songs in my playlist, but I've gone back and listening to Joystick. That was pretty cool, but it is cool because some bands I did not listen to back then. Like Taxi Cab, I never listened to them back then. But then this week I was listening. I was like, oh, I remember this song. I remember they had to play this song, and I was like, this is a pretty good song. Yeah. So that is fun.
I was thinking about how actually listening to my dad yesterday that my daughter is going to grow up not knowing the Toys R Us theme song, right? And now,
oh my god,
if I ever played her this LWL song, Pop Punk Kid,
yeah,
she's gonna be like, okay, well, I don't get it. It's a good song, but I don't get it. Like she won't. When she's older, she'll have no idea.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy? Okay,
it's crazy. It's almost like little kids too when they're referencing phones. They're like,
yes.
When back in the day when we call someone, it would be like this or do on the phone.
So, what current music are you listening to? That whether it's still in the punk or like what's your sort of what are you finding yourself your go-to songs or band that you're listening to lately?
Since 2010 until now, the band that's been on the most repeat, and I've said this a lot of times, is Balance and Composure. I don't know if you heard of them at all.
Mm-hmm.
They are I think they're in their mid-20s now. When I caught them, they're from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is the same Circus Survive. And Circus Survive, I've really been into them since the beginning. I think their new albums, I don't like them though. But there's something about Pennsylvania that in Wilkes-Barre, or where's the office filmed in again? Scranton, Pennsylvania. Scranton, Pennsylvania, Doylestown had a bunch of really good bands come out of there. The latest Tiger's Jaw is amazing. I didn't really like their earlier stuff, so I listened to that a lot. But Balance Composure has just got this really their newer stuff is more trippy, but the old stuff was just this raw, melodic, catchy, super catchy stuff. You should really check it out.
I'll check it out.
Start with the EP that has the song Rope on it, and just start with that song, and then you're like, oh yeah, I get sucked into this. I don't know, like that. What have I downloaded recently? Yeah, new Tiger's Jaw. There's actually a pop punk band, and I hate that I forget their name, but they're out of Raleigh, and they're very reminiscent of the Ataris' New Found Glory, and they do it so well that I think they're gonna blow up like pretty soon. I mean, from my standards, blown up, but it sucks that I don't know their name, so that's gonna be telling.
It's all good.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, like I said, my Spotify playlist is like the one thing I listen to. There was some. Who's the band that Heath went into? Senses Fail. Mm-hmm. I never got into them.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I liked Lady in the Blue Dress, but there's a song that was on the record with there's this, the mirror's cracked and it's got this guy's. I like this. It's like, I'm stuck in a coma. That song, for some reason, I stumbled across it a couple weeks ago, and you ever get that song that you just have to listen to over and over and over until you just burn it out?
Right.
That would definitely be my latest song, where I think this is the week where I'm like, all right, I think I'm over it. But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, Balance and Composure. Glass Jaw was a huge thing of mine as well, but I still listen to I'll still sometimes throw back to Huey Lewis and the News, and I'll listen to some of those songs, or yeah. It's just wherever my mind takes me. Sometimes it's present, or sometimes it goes back. I think a lot of the stuff that I see that's on Instagram, or the newer bands, what is this crap?
Yeah.
And but some of it, I'm like, okay, I can get it. But some of it, I think that's just the way they're attaching. It's like when we were younger, the generation before us listened to what we were listening to. We're like, what is this crap? This
Exactly.
music. We've become that.
Yeah.
This isn't music. This isn't what real music is. There's no heart. There's no this. And then 20 years from now, when these guys are listening to what's coming out then, they're going to be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's
circle
like,
of life.
Yeah, it's the generation that shows up to the. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're able to come out, and it just worked out well, which is good.
Yeah, really well.
This is a good conversation, and I'm really happy that you started this podcast, because it definitely brings back a lot of memories for me, and I'm sure it does for everybody else who's listening to it.
Yeah.
And including yourself.
Okay.
So it's and I hope it turns into something even bigger, even if it does branch out to like licensing this idea to other scenes in other states and whatever it turns into. I'm glad you started it, and I hope it keeps going.
Thanks, man. Me too.
Yeah.
You mean this podcast?
That's its own set of complications. We used to tell people, you ever have a girlfriend? Yes. You ever have 8 of them? Getting everybody to agree on this, that, and the other, it was tough.
It's a war,